thank you for staying with us. This is still Sunrise, and we're going to be looking at the flood outlook for this year. The Nigeria Hydrological Survey Agency, NIHSA, in its 2020 annual flood outlook, has revealed that no fewer than 102 local government areas in 28 states are at risk of flood this year. This is as a result of a fallout from a devastating effect of the 2012 flood in the country. If you remember, just think back, throw your mind back a little to 2012, and it was when we had the heavy rains. And I remember the rains in Lagos were so heavy that the governor at the time actually asked Lagos state staff not to come to work. I think it was for 2 days or something. Lagos was almost underwater. So that has had a ripple effect, which we are feeling in 2020. Excuse me. The Director General of the Nigeria Hydrological Service Agency, Mr. Clement Nze, is joining us from our studio in Abuja and will be telling us more about this. Good morning, Mr. Nze.
Good morning and welcome.
You can hear you.
Yes, good. Yes, we're looking at something that happened in 2012. Can you please tell us more about that and how that is coming back to bite us in 2020?
The flood of 2012 remains the reference point, the benchmark. It was said to be, in some locations, what we call a 100-year return interval. Maybe in some locations, a 80-year return interval. That is to say, the period you expect such a kind of rain to take place, or the flood. But however, owing to the climate change, barely 6 years, in 2018, 2012 flood incident, almost took place. Only because what was short of it was that Cameroon didn't release water from Lagdo Dam. If they had done release of water in 2018, it could have been maybe worse than 2012 when they released the water from Lagdo Dam. Now, coming to 2020, like I said, 2012 remains a reference point. From our predictions for 2020, which was made public by the Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adam, 2 days ago, what we are seeing is that the gravity of flooding in 2020 may not be like that of 2019. 2019 was a bit less than 2018. So we may not be expecting that kind of volume of devastation in 2020, but it is a prediction.
Okay, Mr. Nze, please just, thank you. We'll take a moment and hear the Minister of Water Resources, and then we'll come back to continue the conversation. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We still have the Director General of the Nigeria Hydrological Service Agency, Mr. Clement Nze, with us. Mr. Nze, you did a comparison between what happened in 2012, up till 2019, and you said we may not have that amount of devastation in 2020, but you ended by saying it is still a prediction. In other words, it could change. What is the possibility that it could change? What is it that might happen to cause a change besides the release of a Lagdo Dam?
Well, the following factors could cause that to change. One, the anthropogenic activities of man. Anthropogenic activities. Building or living structures within the floodplain. Not clearing the drainages that are filled up here and there. I think about 3 or 4 days ago, I saw a video clip of a flood at Onitsha. And it was so devastating. Some say it was 2012, I don't know, but I think it is recent. Structures, obstructed the flow of runoff. So if such things are not taken care of, and then climate change. For instance, the Meteorological Agency had made a prediction earlier in the year. They made it public on the 21st of January. Is weather dependent. The precipitation is weather dependent. That's the rainfall. Anything could happen in between. That's why each of the predicting agencies always try to be ahead of whatever is happening, to be monitoring the development and then be updating. So like I said, from our prediction, the flooding incident might not be as severe as 2019, but there could be pockets of devastation in some locations. And maybe such people may not have experienced it in 2019 or 18. It could occur to them this year. So these are the issues. But generally, globally, all over the country, what we are seeing is that it might not be as high as that, but it could be so localized in some areas with some heavy devastation.
You say that there might be occurrences in 102 local government areas in 28 states. And, well, some of the states are, Rivers, Cross River, Delta, Lagos, Ondo, Bayelsa, Sokoto, Kogi, Niger, Kaduna, Gombe, Adamawa, Benue, FCT, Nasarawa, Delta, Oyo, Ogun, Osun, Ekiti, Ebonyi, Edo, Abia, Anambra, Imo, Borno, Kano, and Kebbi. So how should these states prepare themselves just in case? Well, we hear you, we understand it's only a prediction, so it may not happen, but better be prepared, than to have regrets. So how should these states prepare themselves? Because the rains have come already.
Now, let me moderate that statement I made, that it is a prediction. It's not a guesswork. The prediction is based on real-time data of over 30 years, 40 years in some locations across the country. We measure all the major rivers in Nigeria. We know their behavior. Rivers Niger, Benue, Rima, Sokoto, Imo, Anambra, Ogun. We have measurements all over. River Cross, the entire country, we measure them. Some of them have kept readings on a daily basis for over 50 years. So it is the information gathered from these stations, the stage height, the discharge. These are some of the parameters we use in the prediction. So when I said it is a mere prediction, it doesn't mean that it was a guesswork. What must the states do? The Honorable Minister of Water Resources, who spoke a few minutes ago, had endorsed letters to each of the governors in Nigeria, to the Honorable Minister of the FCT, telling each of them the locations, the local government areas that are likely to be inundated by flood. And he urged them in that letter that had been dispatched to them, the thing they need to do. Enlightenment of the citizens. Physically going around to remove structures that are within the floodplains or that are obstructing runoff in the cities. Like I saw some pictures where the governor of Delta State was supervising construction of drainage works in Delta, clearing the drainages. I also observed where around February or so, before the COVID-19 took over the center space, where the Lagos state government going from one location to the other, looking at their systems, the earth force that convey flood or rivers into the Atlantic that are blocked. They were at work. And when I spoke with one of them recently, they are still working. So we expect that each of the states that have been communicated with, all of them have been communicated with, to take action immediately by removing structures, by clearing their drainages, enlightening the people of what they should do. Usually between the months of July, August, September, what we call just months, this is the peak of flooding in Nigeria. However, it has begun already, especially in the southern part of Nigeria.
Okay.
Sorry. Mr. Nze, NIMET told us earlier this year that we were likely to have more rainfall this year than last year. So are you implying, therefore, that even though we will have more rain, they will not be as heavy as last year and the year before?
If I recall properly, I was there at the launch by NIMET or NIMET. We spoke about the early onset of rainy season in the country. In other words, where it ought to have started maybe previously with going by records, say in the month of March, that it might become sometime in the month of May, or April rather, late onset. The rainfall is one of the input parameters we use in predicting of flood. I can name them. The geology of the environment, that's what is under the ground, whether it is rocky environment or sandy. The topography, the land use pattern, the river system. Then rainfall is a major input. So going by what we did, I mean our prediction, the work we did, what we have said is what we have seen, that it might not be as high as it was in 2019, not minding the prediction by NIMET in terms of having more rainfall in 2020.
Okay, first of all, when you talked about, I asked a question about what could bring about a change or that could shake or move away from that prediction. You talked about anthropogenic activities, blocked drains, and climate change. Climate change, yeah, tying on to if the rains that are coming late were going to increase. And climate change basically has become unpredictable and such. It's somewhat difficult to say exactly, okay, we might say the rains will come in early and then they'll come late, or they will be heavy and they turn out not to be heavy because of the unpredictable nature of climate change. But that being said, these issues are such that sometimes the people are unaware. You said the government ought to educate the people, they ought to clean out the drains, and then even in their construction process, they also ensure that the drains are clean and all of that. But then, is the agency or is the federal government planning anything for these states that are likely to experience flood?
We have government at different levels, at least at 3 levels in Nigeria: federal, state, and the local governments. Each has a duty to do in securing life and property. The federal government is not everywhere, in a sense. The state government is closer, while the LGAs are closest to the people. Now, at our own end as an agency of federal government, ours is mainly advisory. We predict, we notify people, we warn them, we carry out a sensitization program going from one point to the other. But in the present circumstances we are now, COVID-19, we have devised other means to get the message down. So it is expected that each state government performs its own functions. Every state has the Ministry of Environment. Every state has State Emergency Management Agency. Every state has an urban and regional planning department at the relevant agencies or Ministry of Government. what are those ones doing? Then also, we collaborate with other agencies of government like NOA. They are virtually in every local government area. So they are to help us at this our level, having released the information, to try to cascade that information down to the grassroots. We cannot enforce as an agency any form of regulation by way of going to remove structures. There are relevant agencies of government at the state levels that can do such. It happened in Dave City during the era of El-Rufai.
Okay.
So many structures were removed. The state should be able to do such things in their locations.
If I may interrupt you here, that thing about what the government at different levels are doing brings to mind a particular thing that sometimes might be a problem. The monitoring of the different river basins across the country. What level of instrumentation and geospatial monitoring do we do to ensure that anytime there's going to be a situation, we are ready to go? And how do we improve or tie that data gotten from monitoring of the river basins, how do we tie that to the land use processes across the state?
Now, our agency has been carrying out what we call a flood vulnerability mapping of various areas in the country. We call it the hydrological area. The flood plain mapping of Nigeria is so that by the time you conclude it in some locations, like last year we launched one in Port Harcourt, bringing together all the states within that hydrological area that we are mapped to show them the document. Every state government within this area was invited. It is expected of them to demonstrate it within their states. It will tell you the level, do I say encroachment you can, safe distance you can keep within the river banks. Or there are natural channels, even though there's no water in them, especially during the dry season, that are flood plains. Naturally, they are dry during the dry season, but they remain the pathways of flood. All these were documented, and they are available. We've done it in what we call Hydrological Area 1, Sokoto Basin. Within all the states that in those areas that have been done, it has been done. And they are available with the state governments. Theirs now is to implement it to ensure that the citizens are safe, especially during the rainy season. We saw what happened in Abuja last year. We know those settlements or the what do we call them? Where estates, people built houses. What happened there? Encroachment within the floodplains. So, like in Abuja, it's expected that the Development Control Department in FCT should be able to do something. I learned last year, they might about 150 houses that must go. So how far that one has gone, I can't really say for now.
Okay, thank you for that. The other side of the question you didn't really look into is the monitoring of the river basins across the country and how that data can be integrated into the land use planning. Is that being worked out?
Now, we have 12 river basins in Nigeria, 12 river basins in Nigeria. Nigeria has a way that nature had divided it into. Now, the river basins carry out, among other duties, the measurement of rivers in their locations. And our agency also, being the main agency for hydrological activities in the country, we liaise with each of the river basins and even state water boards to collect data about the rivers that are being gauged in the country. And as an agency, this year, 2020, we were able to develop an app, what we call Flood Mobile App, which can give you at your fingertip, wherever you are, what you should be expecting all over the country. The whole of 774 local government areas in Nigeria are covered by that application. It is a mobile app, but we are trying to, get a little bit further, whereby those who cannot use the electronic devices can get the information just by ordinary text messages. It is expected that this data, this information we are reeling out every year should guide the states in the development of their locations. It's expected to be used. It's not a arbitrary figure that we are reeling out every year.
The question I asked is, how is that being worked out to integrate? Are the states using this data? Because apparently places that were flooded the previous year get flooded again the next year, and it's like a recurring decimal. So it looks as though data release is not being used by the different states. So what's the relationship like between your agency and the different states?
In fact, that is the crux of the matter. That what happened last year, repeating itself this year, what happened in 2018, happened in 2019. If I may put it this way, most of the states are not living up to expectation in terms of being proactive, in terms of utilizing data, being made available to them every year. It looks as if they are more comfortable with receiving, some funds, assistance after the flood has taken place, medicine after death. For instance, NEMA and other agencies. I know there's a committee we call Presidential Committee on Flood Relief and Rehabilitation, co-chaired by Alhaji Aliko Dangote and Chief Olisaba Koba. It was brought into effect in 2012 after the flood incident. Presidential Committee on Flood Relief and Rehabilitation. So most of the states seem to be waiting for damages to happen in their states occasioned by flood. And then the committee or other public spirited individuals will dole out money. Like I remember in 2012, states were categorized into A, B, C, D, up to E or so, depending on the severity. Some got 5 billion naira, some 4.5, 3 billion, 2 billion, depending on the severity of flooding and devastation. But at the end of the day, the real victims, most of them never even saw 1 naira. So they seem to be relying on relief materials that will be given to them at the end of the disaster. So the state should key into what we are speaking, what we are talking about. I will expect them to be inundating my agency with information, questions. Please, what is going to happen this year? I expect such a thing to be coming up. Anambra called many months or weeks ago. Enugu State called. Somebody, I think Osun State or thereabout, also called to find out what is going to happen in 2020. That's what we expect from all the states. Not to wait until there's devastation and then waiting for relief.
Mr. Clement Nze, thank you very much for intimating us of the flood outlook for 2020. Thank you. Mr. Clement Nze is the Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Service Agency, and he joined us from our studio in Abuja. Well, Sunrise moves on, and we'll be back with another interesting conversation in just a moment. Do stay with us.